I am Skip Murphy, your host today at GrokTALK, a venture of GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, and I am here and kind of outmanned by sort of two NHinsiders.com. Steve McDonald, who also writes on GraniteGrok for us, and Ed Naile, and you also write at NH Insider, as well as being the Executive Director, Chairman, and Grand Poobah of CNHT, Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. And folks, this morning we've been talking about voter fraud. Mostly because there's three bills walking through the New Hampshire Legislature that hopefully will start to pull that down. And, you know, I've just been totally amazed that our Secretary of State, Mr. Gardner, has consistently and always said, along with the AG's office, the Attorney General's office, said, we don't have any voter fraud here at all, and yet you've already regaled us with several different stories of such. And I understand that you have a stack, like yay high, of voter fraud. It must be just really good for lighting fires with.
I have photos. I have confessions. What else would you need to show? One of my favorites is, we call it the lump at the dump. We had the hearing I was at last Tuesday, the League of Women Voters was in and saying how tight our absentee ballot process is here in New Hampshire. And I'd already handed to, maybe she wasn't aware of this, but I handed to the Election Law Committee a picture of the Bedford School District clerk sitting at a coffee table at the dump in Bedford with a big sign that said, vote here today from 3 to 9. He had the checklist and absentee ballots. So he was giving out absentee ballots like candy bars to anybody who came to the dump. And there was no police officers, there was no line. If you want to have a polling place, it has to be advertised in the paper, has to have what's called a rail to keep people away, and stand in proper lines, and police presence. This is a big fat guy at the dump with absentee ballots and the voters' checklist. We call it the lump at the dump. He was wedged between a couple tractor trailers. Now, if that's a polling place in New Hampshire, well, then it should come with banjo music. You know? So I have that. So maybe that's evidence. But anyway, that was turned into the Attorney General's office.
Wonderful.
And they said this was highly irregular, but not illegal. Well, it violates 7 or 8 different parts of election law, which I'm not going to go into now. This show would be 10 hours long if we went into voter fraud in New Hampshire in depth.
So now I know why Obama can say, with his Department of Justice, well, we'll enforce this one and not this one, and that one but not this one, and that one and not this one. Because I mentioned DOMA, and we've already seen in the news that their refusal to prosecute racial injustice when it's whites that are getting.
But the Black Panthers can patrol election polling places in Philadelphia.
Yeah, with billy clubs and kind of paramilitary uniforms on.
Yeah, so President Barry Soetoro can send his guy, Eric Holder, out to do his bidding in any fashion he wants. It's nothing to do with the Constitution. But we're all finding that out. So, in any case, we had a question about what bills they were.
Well, the bills, and what are the effects? What is the intended effect?
There's 3 bills right now. There's one that's been retained for photo ID. It requires a photo identification to vote at the polls. Now, if you had that, let's say, for instance, up in North Conway, they had a water district bond going on, millions of dollars for the water district. And after the vote, it only won by 3 votes. So the bond passes, it's a supermajority vote. The bond passes. Turns out some people from outside the water district mistakenly voted. If they had a voter ID, they would have walked up and it would have said, yes, Bill Smith, Wagon Wheel Road, driver's license, Bill Smith, Wagon Wheel Road. That would have been real easy. Right now, they just check. You know, they just quickly just go by and say, you give your name and your vote, and if you're on the checklist, they don't check anything. Voter ID would probably clean up a lot of the messes we have in our elections, because we have so many. We have 235 towns, we have all these different school districts, selectmen, 400 state reps. We have a lot of electing goes on in New Hampshire. There was a photo ID bill that was retained by Representative Driscoll, the prime sponsor. The 2 bills on Thursday were 223 and 176. 223 would define domicile as, if you live in New Hampshire and you're a resident, this is your domicile. If you're a college student, you are domiciled where you came from until you've become a citizen.
And you know, I think when I first moved to New Hampshire, that was before motor voter and same-day registration, all that stuff. That was part of what I thought was my civic responsibility. I'm transferring up from Massachusetts 25 odd years ago, and I needed to go up to Town Hall, City Hall, and do the necessary. Guess what? Here I am, Mo, and I'm going to be voting here. And on my time, just one of those things you have to do, versus the lazy way of doing this, which I think motor voter is, because you can't hardly check anything at that point. You have to provide all kinds of ID, at least when I did that. And certainly the same day registration is a I mean, I look at that, and again, it all comes down to, why is my vote being cheapened? You're right. And you know, if you don't have an ID, how hard is it? I mean, in Georgia, they went through this already. If you are elderly, if you are indigent, if you are poor, we will come to you and we will give you an ID. It will cost you nothing. We will give that to you to make sure that our voting process is pure.
Their argument is that the photo ID would be difficult for somebody in a nursing home, or all these different ways of tightening up our election law. It would be tough for people in a nursing home on election day. Would you ever see a nursing home on election day?
Oh yeah.
Vans are going in. These people get hauled out in gurneys to vote. I mean, they were going there helping them with the absentee ballots. I mean, each person has their own team of vote helpers. So that's not a problem. The Republican Party, the Democrat Party will make sure everybody gets an opportunity to vote. And if you're listed and we change the law, you're going to be contacted. The law's going to change. I mean, it's not going to happen and all of a sudden you wake up and you can no longer vote. That's not going to happen. That's always the threat. It was funny, when I had all these students in the Representatives Hall, I said, well, everybody here keeps saying how they love the right to vote. How would you like if you wake up the next day?
Oh, and we have a call. Oh, darn.
Nope, it's still ringing.
Hold on a second. We will open that up. Good morning. Hello. Hi there. This is GrokTALK. I'm Skip. How are you this morning? Okay, well, go ahead and ask your questions, Tim.
On the first one that we had Tuesday last week, all you do is go on to the Webster site and look up Election Law Committee, and all the bills that they have will be listed. But it's 223 was the definition of domicile, which would define whether or not you're a citizen just because you're here in the military or just because you're here at a Institute of Higher Learning. And then there is a photo ID bill, which means you would get out some sort of identification from your driver's license or something issued by the state with your photograph on it. And the other one, oh boy, I'm losing my track here.
Was it the same day?
Same day registration, abolish same day registration.
Did it make it 10 days? 3
And,
days?
yeah, you have to sign up 10 days ahead of time, which would give an opportunity to everybody to find out who they are, rather than someone shows up, they vote, and they disappear, and you never see them again. When we start tracking same-day registrants, and you send them all letters the next day, like 10% of them come back, you can't find that person. When 96,000 people are registering same day, that's 9,000 and some people, you have to find out whether or not they really lived here because a letter sent to that address is returned. That's not a good way to run an election. It's an opportunity for fraud, which we've proven over and over again. And remember, this Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers has been collecting evidence of voter fraud for 10 years without a little tin badge to get what I'd really like to have. So when I've been offered an opportunity, this is verbal so far, to sit down with the AG, the Secretary of State, and the Election Law Committee to review what I have of voter fraud. Well, I've been keeping some stuff. So when they want to sit down, don't expect to see what I've showed you before. Expect to see that and more. So it'll be in some places you can go pick up all the voter fraud you want. So I'm hoping that that little meeting comes to fruition and no one decides to back out of it.
Well, it certainly sounds like you have been doing this for years and years and years, Ed. I know you have been for as long as I have, and I understand you've been doing it for at least a decade before that. So I would have to say you are one of the authorities of this. Hopefully now with a more Republican-leaning, more liberty and freedom-leaning legislature that really does value the role of the vote versus just the power of the party, we can see some things start to change here.
If these Republicans won't do it, we'll get other Republicans, or we'll get Libertarians, we'll get somebody else. But it's going to get done because the public wants to see it. And I've been going around giving voter fraud workshops to people for about a year, and it's very well received. I mean, people who come in, they come up, well, hey, I'm in law school. Well, here's all the court cases, federal cases, here's the state cases. Well, I live in this town. Well, here's the way it works in a town. I can show you how a moderator at a town that uses machine ballots can cheat to pass a bond. I can show you how to do that because I've seen it happen. I know that in my town of a lousy 2,000 resident town, I know 3 people, 2 of them live in Maryland and one of them lives in Virginia, Maryland area. I've worked for them and they've given me a check from their home, from their domicile out of state. And one is a summer home, the other one's a rental property, and they still, 2 still vote here, I think. The other one got caught, kind of became an issue when he rented the house out to other people. He stopped coming up here and campaigning and going back down to the Virginia, Maryland area. So I know these people. You know, I've done work for them. I've gotten their checks sent to me. Everybody in town knows they don't live here. They only come up here in the summertime, but they vote here. So I can show you how that works. Cities are different. You know, I've done voter fraud in cities, and I've worked on voter fraud issues in college towns. So there's multiple ways to commit voter fraud. Then there's election law violations. And the first thing I like to do when I start my talk off with, we don't have enough time.
No,
when
we
come
don't.
Back, I'll give you one. A good reason why I'm involved in
Well,
this.
actually, when we come back, we're going to be talking with John Kalb and talking about right-to-work type stuff. But, you know, Ed, we're going to have you back.
All right.
Because there's an awful lot that you know that we need to get out there and get people a little more fired up about this. But I am Skip. This is GrokTALK, a venture of GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site. When we come back, we're going to be talking with John Kalb. Oh, you're not going away yet. About right to work and tie it into Wisconsin. We've got a couple of music clips to play for you, so we got lots on the plate. We'll be right back.